Okay, Protista is our next kingdom, and just so you know that this can be a very random kingdom because if it didn't fit into any of the other kingdoms, they just put it in Protista. So sometimes you see it referred to as the catch-all kingdom. It's sort of like the kitchen drawer that has got everything in it. You know, you've got some batteries and you got a screwdriver and maybe a flashlight. Well, nothing really goes together with these protists except for the fact that they're all eukaryotic. So what they did was they took a lot of organisms that did not fit into the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, or the fungi kingdom, and they made this kingdom Protista. So there's going to be a lot of different things that you have to remember about a lot of different organisms. Now, they did categorize them according to whether they were animal-like, plant-like, or fungus-like. They are single-celled protists, and then we have multicellular. We have some that reproduce sexually. We have some that reproduce asexually. But the one thing that they all have in common is the fact that they're eukaryotic. This is our first eukaryotic kingdom. Our last kingdom was our prokaryotes. So they are very simple, yet some of them are a little bit more complex. On a cellular basis, they're more complex because their cells have to do more jobs. An amoeba, a paramecium, they're one-celled, but yet that cell has got to do a lot of jobs. It has to take in food, it has to eliminate waste, it has to carry out metabolism, whereas your cells are more specific because they have one job. And I think we all know if we had 50 jobs, we would be less efficient than if we had one. So we have muscle cells to contract, nerve cells that transmit information, and they are very, very specialized and specific. Not so with our protists. All right, they're single-celled or they're very simple in the multicellular department. They generally do not fit into the other kingdoms. The animal-like do have properties of animals. They're all heterotrophic, for instance, yet they can't be in the animal kingdom. Some of them that would appear to be plants, like our seaweeds, are in this kingdom, don't have true roots, stems, or leaves, and that's what it takes in order to be in the plant kingdom. So therefore, it gets to be in the Protista. Some of these protists are microscopic, but some of them are not, and some of them are very large. When we get to our brown seaweeds, that's kelp, and we know that they can be hundreds of meters in length. All right, this kingdom includes hundreds of phyla, although good news for you is you're not getting hundreds of phyla, but do remember some of the organisms in each phyla as we go through. Members of the kingdom are often just called protists because there are so many different ones, and this is our most diverse kingdom. It's the most diverse in size. It's also the most diverse in number. Protists are eukaryotic. They have a nuclei. They have membrane-bound organelles. Again, they're not plants, animals, or fungi. Some of them are going to be unicellular, like our amoeba, parameciums. Some of them are going to be multicellular. Some are going to reproduce sexually. Very often, sexual reproduction is in times of stress for these organisms. Most of the time, asexual reproduction is the way that they usually reproduce. All right, the three broad categories are based on how they get their nutrition or get their food. So there's not a lot of evolutionary relationships that connect these protists, so they had to come up with a way to figure out how are we going to categorize them. So our first is our animal-like. All of our animal-like protozoans are unicellular, and they're in a group called protozoa. Protozoa is not a phylum. There are going to be phylum or phyla within protozoa. Protozoa just means they're animal-like. It's like saying people. There's all different kinds of people. However, you have to say, men, women, you can further categorize them. The same with protozoa. So when you say protozoa, it's going to include the ones that move by cilia. It will include the ones that move by flagella and so on. So we will be specific within that group. Then we have our algae, which is our plant-like protists, and they can be unicellular. They can be colonial, meaning they can stick together and live in groups. Or when we get to our seaweeds, we know that they're multicellular. Fungus, fungus are decomposers, and they're considered to be saprophytes. Saprophyte is a word that means that it decomposes only on dead organic material. If we were talking about larger, we would say detrivores. That's like our flies and our vultures and larger animals that feed, that are decomposers. And they're not bacteria, so they fall into a group that are called saprophytes or saprophytic. They also have extracellular digestion because they release enzymes into their environment. They break the organic material down. They absorb the nutrition back into the body, and that's called absorptive nutrition, but the type of digestion is extracellular. All right, where do you find these things? They're usually found in damp, aquatic environments. Stressful situations for protists are going to be very dry environments where there's not a lot of food source. And some of them are in symbiotic relationships. Certainly, your disease sheet, those were all parasitic. That's a type of symbiotic relationship. Microsporidia, this is a type of teeny tiny little protist. They are parasitic to insects. And then, there's some that are mutualistic that we will talk about. And one of the examples is the algae that lives on the slough. That's a type of mutualism.